The Crescent Pines Motel sat just off Highway 47, a lonely stretch of road in rural Arkansas. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't famous, and it certainly wasn't the kind of place anyone would think twice about. The kind of roadside stop where families on long trips might pull in for the night, or where truck drivers grabbed a few hours of restless sleep before moving on. Its neon sign, once bright red and buzzing, now flickered weakly in the dark. The paint was peeling, the pool had long since been drained and filled with leaves. By all appearances, the Crescent Pines was just another forgotten relic of mid-century America. But locals will tell you there's one room you never book, room 6B, because the people who check into 6B never check out. The first disappearance tied to room 6B was recorded in October of 1992. The guest was a traveling salesman named Harold Price. He was 44 years old, divorced, and drove a beat-up Ford sedan packed with suitcases full of kitchenware samples. According to the clerk, Harold checked in late one Tuesday night, paid in cash, and asked for a wake-up call at 6 the next morning. Nothing seemed unusual, but when the clerk knocked on Harold's door the next morning, there was no answer. When the door was opened with the master key, his bed was neatly made, his suitcase was gone, his wallet, his watch, and his clothes were missing too. But his car? It was still parked outside, keys still in the ignition, as though he'd planned to leave but never did. Police searched the room. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, nothing out of place, except Harold himself, who had vanished into thin air. The case was written off as a disappearance, maybe even a runaway, but his family swore Harold wouldn't abandon his life. And as time passed, locals began whispering that it wasn't Harold who disappeared. It was 6B that took him. The years passed and people forgot. But then in 2001, a young couple traveling cross-country vanished under the same circumstances. They had been on their way to California, their car packed with wedding gifts. Their names were Jason and Melissa Carter. Their families said they were inseparable, high school sweethearts who had just gotten married in Georgia. When they didn't show up in San Diego, their relatives panicked. Police traced their last known location, Crescent Pines Motel. Their belongings were gone from room 6B, their luggage, their wedding rings, even their shoes. But their car remained parked outside the room, engine cold. No witnesses, no clues, no goodbye, just gone. By then, the rumor had teeth. People in town began to avoid Crescent Pines altogether. Truckers swapped stories about the room that eats people. Some locals swore the number 6B itself was cursed, a relic from a burned-down farmhouse that once stood on the property. And yet, despite the warnings, travelers continued to check in, unknowingly stepping into a story that would never end. The most publicized case came in 2013. A middle school teacher named Karen Mitchell was driving home after visiting her sister in Dallas. She was meticulous, organized, the kind of person who kept every receipt and never missed a phone call. When she failed to arrive at work the next Monday, her colleagues grew worried. Detectives traced her credit card activity to Crescent Pines Motel. She had checked into 6B just before midnight. The clerk said she seemed tired, but otherwise fine. She even bought a soda from the vending machine before heading inside. By morning, Karen was gone. This time, investigators combed every inch of the room. They found her toothbrush in the bathroom, her open book on the nightstand, her reading glasses folded neatly beside it. But there was no sign of Karen herself. Her car was still in the parking lot. Her cell phone, oddly, was never found. Reporters swarmed the small town. Crescent Pines became a name whispered on late-night radio shows, ghost hunting forums, and paranormal blogs. And still, no answers. By now, the disappearances had caught the attention of law enforcement. In 2016, state police organized a sting. An undercover officer, whose identity remains sealed to this day, checked into room 6B. He was equipped with a body cam, radio, and backup surveillance. The plan was simple: stay one night, observe, and leave the next morning. The footage he captured is chilling. At 2:45 a.m., the officer reported a feeling of unease. The room felt colder than the rest of the motel, the air heavy and damp. He complained of hearing faint knocking sounds coming from inside the walls. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the body cam footage glitched. Static filled the screen. A faint shadow flickered across the lens, tall and indistinct. And then, blackness. The officer never checked out. When backup entered the room at dawn, the bed was empty. The officer's gear was gone. But on the nightstand, there was something no one could explain. A Polaroid photograph. It showed the officer asleep in bed, and standing over him, a dark, featureless figure. Official reports suggest foul play, an abduction ring, or a serial predator using the motel as hunting grounds. But skeptics point out, why leave cars behind? Why take every trace of the person, but not their vehicle? Then there are the locals, who whisper about the land itself. They say Crescent Pines Motel was built on the site of a farmhouse that burned down in 1968, killing an entire family inside. Some believe room 6B was constructed directly over the ashes of the children's bedroom. Others believe the room is not a room at all, but a doorway, a thin place between worlds where those who step inside don't step back out. And every theory circles back to the same question: where do they go? Today, Crescent Pines Motel still stands. The pool is still empty, the neon still flickers, and the other rooms still rent to passing strangers. But room 6B remains locked, untouched, a void that the owners refuse to acknowledge. Still, strange reports surface every few years. Travelers parked nearby claim to see the light flicker on in 6B, even though the electricity has been shut off. Others say they've heard muffled voices through the thin motel walls, laughter, crying, or the faint click of a camera shutter. And then there are the cars. Every few years, police find a vehicle abandoned in the lot, engine cold, keys in the ignition. The owners missing. Always missing. So, if you ever find yourself on a long drive through Arkansas and you see a faded neon sign glowing red against the night, think twice before pulling over. The beds might be clean, the rates might be cheap, but if the clerk offers you room 6B, don't take it, because people check into that room, but they never check out. If stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, don't let this be the last one you hear. Hit that subscribe button and join